The game gives, and the game taketh away. Leader Fan Radio Network.
Our button bar's frozen. It's just frozen.
Threw me off.
I know.
2 minutes.
And I had a great one for today.
2 minutes and 23 seconds past the hour of 3 o'clock.
It might just fire when you're talking. So just be ready for either Tim Brewster or Justin Jefferson.
Central Daylight Time. Welcome back. It is a Monday edition of the afternoon aardvark on a beautiful mid-August afternoon here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. And quite frankly, Guardsy, it may have been a day where silence was the better form of valor.
Interesting.
Because the story is about the cruelty of not necessarily just the sports gods, but specifically the football gods. It does occur, well, it's been a while since I've been at ground level for a Vikings, for any football scrimmage, right? Back in the day, ink-stained wretches were on the sidelines there, right down on that level, pretty close to the action. You could find yourself during regular season, perhaps back in the day, where you're trying to beat the crowd down to the field level, the locker room level, and so the last few minutes you might, back when they let you do this, might watch the last few minutes from the corner of an end zone. And on those few occasions, certainly covering practices going all the way back to my days covering the University of Georgia, where you could really be on top of it, you are reminded of something that I think is way too easy to dismiss. This game, more than any other, is not for everybody. And you see some of the collisions, even from, the safety of your Barca. And you go, my God, you got to be wired differently. You have to be built differently. And, of course, in the case of football players, they don't just start playing when they're professional. So to a certain extent, they're brought up in it. They become primed for it. They prepare their bodies. They're no longer surprised when they get the you-know-what knocked out of them, right? Because they've grown up getting the you-know-what knocked out of them. But there is the occasion where I say, this is insane. This game is insane. What players are asked to do is uncivilized, but we've all sort of made our pact with the devil on the game, right? Because we like it too much. We grew up in watching it, if not playing it. I mean, the closest I ever came to tackle football was flag football, and that's not very close.
No, not really the same game.
I don't think it's the same. Now, you could have the occasional collision by mistake.
Accidentally.
That's it.
Yep.
And you could make the argument that the game should be illegal. The game of football, our version of pro football, should be illegal. Then again, the libertarian comeback is these are adults. No one's forcing them to play. No one's forcing them to deal with the cruelty that often accompanies being a professional football player. Latest example, Jamal Adams. I don't know where Jamal Adams was headed this year. Unfortunately, now we're not ever going to find out, at least not this season. But he, I think, was viewed as a low-risk, high-reward acquisition, right? I don't think we were paying him a bunch of money.
Right.
We said, okay, great pedigree, came into the league as a stud, and developed himself as a big-time player. Unfortunately, then a series of injuries gets in the way. He tells people, now that he arrived in Vikings land, that it has basically taken him the better part of 2 years, maybe 2.5 years, to recover from a torn left quadricep. An injury I don't know that I've ever even heard of, but he's lived it. And he talked about how complicated and difficult it is, how long it takes you to kind of maybe feel like close to yourself. Then we get to the preseason opener, Saturday afternoon in New York, in New Jersey. Early on, Adams makes one of those, we call them in the business, splash defensive plays.
Yeah.
Blows up a run, gets the, I don't even know who the running back was, do you? Whoever it was, -2, -3, no factor. And I know what Vikings fans are thinking. Oh.
Got a steal.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe this guy's got some moxie to him, and maybe he can still make plays. Maybe he can still move. Maybe he can be our new monster back, a little bit linebacker, a little bit safety, a little bit corner. And especially with, to that point, no word on Harrison Smith, you say, well, wouldn't be bad to add a guy that B-Flow can study, like a lab experiment, and say, well, here's how I can get the best out of him. And then what happens later in the game? And I was not watching live at this point. Non-contact injury, correct?
Yes.
Carted off. Pretty clear that everybody felt from the beginning it was trouble. The degree of trouble now has been confirmed, as I think originally it was believed to be a knee injury. Now we're told, and you can't really make this up, he has torn his other quadricep muscle. Now it's a torn right quadricep, correct?
Yes.
In the history of football, I'm just asking, has there ever been a professional football player who has torn both quadriceps over the course of 3+ years?
Probably, but I'm sure it's rare.
How cruel is that? Surgery is indeed upcoming. The head coach has said he's one of us. We're going to try to have him around us as much as we possibly can. And I got to admit, I mentioned this on sermons yesterday. I don't want to be a fatalist, and I don't want to say that all injury histories are equal, especially when they're this cataclysmic. But the guy I'm thinking in my head yesterday is Rondell Moore. And I'm thinking it was literally a year ago, almost to the day, maybe about a week off. First preseason touch a year ago, right, for Rondell Moore. Here, this was a home game, preseason game. He's returning, it was either a punt or a kick. I think it was a punt, wasn't it? I don't recall. It was a return. Goes down with an ACL, has to be carted off. Season is over. And Moore also had been a guy who everybody kind of was intrigued by, right? As an all-purpose back. He was outstanding at Purdue, correct?
Great player.
Great player. And this was the latest in an endless series of injuries that never really allowed him to show what he might be capable of doing as a professional. And in that case, there were even reports during his rehab that the doctors were encouraging him, that he was headed to a better place, that the recovery this time around was going very well. But something happened with that kid that went beyond that. And the story broke, what was it? I think it was last February. This February. I mean, February 2026.
This year, yep.
That he had taken his own life. Now, I'm not here to say that means we have to worry about this player doing the same thing. But it is, I think, worth pausing every once in a while. Even if it's just for a minute, because guess what? They're going to play again this coming weekend. And they're going to play another preseason game the weekend after that. And then they're going to start in that regular season after 2 weeks, right? They're not going to stop just because of how cruel this game can be. But it's worth, I think, pausing a little bit to acknowledge that part of it. Every sport has injury, right? But it feels like they just tend to be more cataclysmic in football. And, you know, the irony again is some of the worst football injuries have nothing to do with a tackle. Although, in Moore's case, it was a questionable tackle. I think ultimately deemed as not illegal, but questionable. In this case, it had nothing to do with that, but it's...
He was just covering a guy in space.
Just covering a guy in space.
Yeah, just run into the ball.
Exactly it. It's, I don't think we acknowledge this part of it enough. We just get used to, you know, this is questionable, he's dinged up here, he's got that thing there. And again, they're adults. They've made their choices. But, man, oh, man. And, you know, I remember having a conversation about this with, well, actually, I didn't have the conversation. I saw, this was when Denny ended up winning his first playoff game, that miracle game against the Giants. And my recollection is I saw Brad Johnson, who would he have been on that team?
Yeah.
What year is that? I think he might have been.
Probably. That would have been 96.
In any case, he's taking a taxi. I see him in front of the team hotel. He's taking a taxi. He's completely it was like he could have been anybody. Robert Smith used to talk about this. When you're out rehabbing,
yeah,
as much as people try to, on the team to make you feel a part of it, he said, you're not.
John Sullivan told us that. The old
you're
Vikings
right, same
center.
thing.
He basically says, I'm not part of the team.
You're just not a part of
Yep.
it. It's the way it works. It's no bad intent, but it's a cruel part of the fact that they're out there toiling, and you can't do any toiling with them, so they're not going to look upon you as quite the same. So, in any case, a brutal turn of events for a player who we don't know where it was going to be. I'm not saying he was going to be an MVP candidate, but my God, what a horrific way for it to end for him, at least this season.
You want people that have traveled the long road back, because he could have retired. Yes. He could have stepped away, and I'm sure he's made a lot of money, and he had a really good career, as you laid out. But when you put the time in and you put the effort in, and for some reason I do think it does hit weirder in football because there's so few games, too.
That's a good point. That's part of it. You're right.
I think about, easily the worst part of the sideline reporter job is you are right next to a person and a group of people that know when it's over. And I have vivid memories of players that, my first year, there was a game in Nebraska where 4 guys blew their knee out in the fourth quarter. It was just over and over and over. And the doctor would come over, they'd mess with the knee, he'd tap him on the shoulder pad, and the head would be down.
Yep, they know.
And it's just you just sit there. And by the way, the game's going on.
Yes.
And I've been at practices over the years where a player will go down right in the middle of the field. And it's bad. And sometimes they just have to move the practice to the other side of the field because the show goes on. It is the strangest thing. And a guy will be over here, his life, in the balance, quote unquote, his football life. Yep. And over here, the team just has to go on. It is a very strange deal.
Well, I'll tell you this. I saw the comment, and I don't know when he made it, he being KOC. And it was something that you may be able to find it. It's something to the effect of, we're going to make sure he's around us. He is a Viking. He's going to be around us as much as we possibly can have him, or as much as his situation allows him to be around us. And I have no idea whether he's thinking about Rondale Moore at that point. None. But what occurred to me was, that to me was a head coach trying to be sensitive to the cruelty of it, to say, all right, we want to keep this guy. We tried to keep that guy, but we want to keep everybody as close to this as possible because of, the devastation that is involved in it. And again, in the world, there are worse devastations. There are people dealing with incurable diseases every day, right? Adams is, I'm sure, mature enough that he'll deal with this. But that was my first thought when I saw KOC make, because if you recall, KOC made the point when the Moore tragedy played out. We tried as much as possible to try to have him around us because players make their own decisions. Mm-hmm. He ended up doing a lot of his rehab in Bozich's town. He was in Louisville. Rick Bozich, my guy, went to the same rehab location. And I think to me, it flashed like KOC saying, well, I want to make sure we do everything we can to keep him in as close to the intimate part of the family as we can. As I said, as hard as that is to do when everybody else has a job to do the next Saturday or the next Sunday or the next Monday night, right? That's what makes it hard, even no matter what your best efforts are to keep that player into the mix. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is open at 64686. Let's get a little behind. Let's get a quick pause in. I'll give you details on the uglydeck.com guest lineup in just a minute or two. 2 outstanding guests and a lot to get to today, football and otherwise, right here on what we like to call The Fan.
You're listening to Barreiro on The Fan.
From the 1-800-ASK-GARY Traffic Center.
This report is sponsored by...
Super bummed. I know it's been reported, but, testing, did confirm a quad tendon tear for Jamal, which was an absolute killer. You know, just from what he had meant to us in such a short amount of time. He's had such a great impact. Compliment Nolan for, that was, Nolan was really excited about making that move, and just the dialogue between him and myself and Flo, and then watching Flo, put together the plan of attack for him in a real role that was kind of really coming together. But he'll have that a procedure to have that fixed, and then he's going to be with us all season long. I think it's really important that Jamal knows, and I've talked to a lot, both to him and his family, about just his impact on this organization, his ability to help young players, his ability to be a real beacon of energy, and once obviously he's going to be focused on getting healthy and getting the initial early stages of his rehab going, but we're going to have him with us. You guys will see him around, see him out here, see him around the building, because he's a Minnesota Viking now, and we want to make sure that he knows how important he'll be to our players and team. So just wanted to update you guys. I know it had kind of been speculated on a little bit, but just officially that's where we're at. So
that's KOC earlier today, correct? Updating
correct
the Jackals on the unfortunate news that surrounding Jamal Adams, who now, I guess, will pretty quickly here undergo surgery. A lot of texts coming in. 310 guy asking or suggesting that these injuries occur in football all the time, meaning non-contact, but they don't seem to occur very much in soccer. And soccer is played on only grass fields. Could it be this turf that's causing these injuries? It's a subject, if we get Seifert tomorrow, we might well explore with him, because he's kind of one of the injury reporters, sod reporters, turf doctor kind of reporters for ESPN. And I could have sworn I read that the research is more mixed than people think, but I don't know if that's convenient. And I don't know. I don't watch enough soccer year-round to know how often there's a non-contact soccer injury. Maybe 310 guy is right. I'm not sure. But obviously, post-World Cup, there'd been a lot of discussion. I think we had some of it from NFL players saying, well, it looks like if we have owners willing to pony up, we could have grass. Is it as simple as that when you're playing more, than one game or a series of games? And is it as simple as that when these are often multi-purpose stadiums that are used for concerts and various other things as well? How complicated does that get? Maybe it's something we can discuss. It's a good subject. Nacho's going to join us, Ben Lieber, at 4:50 today, and he's been in it, So he's the perfect person to discuss the psychology of it and how players deal with it and how cruel the game could be at a time like this. Jonny Athletic is also scheduled today, bottom of this hour, correct?
Yes.
3:30 for Jonny. And Ben Lieber. I have a couple A-section stories I'd like to try to wedge in today between now and 6:30. It's probably also worth mentioning, and you may have more details on this than I do, Guardsy. We're going to be trying to give away tickets to Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis at the Minnesota State Fair all week, I think. Every day this week. They are appearing in the grandstand on August 28th. So, how are we playing this? Do we know? Is there a signal? Is there a code? Or do we know exactly what our approach is?
I think we should do talkidbacks for tickets is what we should do.
That's a great idea.
We should do talkidbacks for tickets. Just leave a talkback, say that you want the tickets, say that you want to go. And also included, I know, is if you didn't mention it, State Fair tickets for that day as well.
Yeah, good point.
Sometimes people get bitter. Yes. Like, well, you gave me tickets to the concert, but I got to pay $20 to get into the fair, which that's the fair's fault, not ours. But we're giving you all of it. We're eliminating all of that. And so I would say talkback for tickets is how we should give those away. So hit the microphone icon of the iHeartRadio app and get those tickets.
Were you ready on the basis of what we saw Saturday to extend Kyler Murray's contract beyond the 1 year?
I thought he was fine. I liked how he ran the ball, quite frankly. I appreciated that more. And, yeah, I thought he was fine. I mean,
he had one nice throw.
Yeah, they didn't ask him to do a whole lot, which we probably expected. They ran the ball well, like I already mentioned. And it would have been nice, as KOC said at halftime, to get a touchdown.
A tutty?
Yeah, get a tutty. But it was fine. You know me. I watched it. I watched it through the JJ in the third quarter bit. Mm-hmm. And then so I didn't even see my guy get hurt, devastated. Brosmer.
Yeah.
Hurt himself. So I didn't even catch that part. But
yeah, Wentz had to come right back.
I try not to get too high or too low on preseason football. I really probably only watched on Saturday because of the Kyler factor and just to see how JJ would react and respond. The quarterback, not the wide receiver. So, yeah, he was fine. He was about what I expected. Looked like he can make a couple of throws, and we'll see what they do with them the rest of the way.
The day after I suggested yesterday that it's pretty obvious that if the Vikings are interested in giving themselves the best chance to win this season, Carson Wentz should be the backup quarterback. I'm going to defend McCarthy a little. And I'm going to ask you a question. The drive, the Kyler Murray, the first drive of the game, which featured 2 outstanding runs, and the one nice third down conversion throw to the right that got challenged almost immediately.
Yeah.
It ended in 3 on an incomplete pass in which Kyler tried to hit Aaron Jones off to the left.
The left side, yep.
Here's what fascinates me about the reaction afterwards. And this is where I think if you're a J.J. McCarthy fan, you have a right to ask this question. It's being deemed, here's how it's being posed. Well, Kyler read, I need Jones to flare further to the left.
Yep.
Jones thought he was exactly where he was supposed to be. So it looked like, from the naked eye, an errant throw, a difficult throw for or catch for Aaron Jones to make, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's not possible, but I'm saying at any point in J.J. McCarthy's 2+ years here, has there ever been a time when the Jackals have presented an incompletion involving an errant throw by J.J. McCarthy the same way, where they said, well, J.J. actually thought he read it where the receiver or running back as a receiver needs to flare out a little bit more, and that's why he led him a little bit further to the left. I've never remember it happening once. What we've said in his case is bad throw.
Right.
Inaccurate pass.
How do you miss that?
Yeah, exactly.
How do you miss that? And it did. I don't know if it's ever happened, but I do know it's never happened immediately.
No. Yes, that's right.
Burstich immediately was chemistry. That's where you got to. And by the way, that might all be right.
Exactly.
I'm not even ripping
it might
Burstich.
be true.
If you ask me, I would guess it probably is, that there are some things to work out in terms of chemistry and timing and everything that goes with that. But it was an immediate, and that's where you're going to see some chemistry issues. Those are things that you got to work out together, and that's why playing, and I'm paraphrasing Pete, but it was the first reaction to that. And so maybe that's it, but no.
It just cracked me up. It's like, it's okay to say
now.
It's possible that was not a great throw. You know, although you'll notice the QB himself, well, I saw it one way, and Jones said, oh, my God. I mean, you want to talk about microscopic examination of every preseason play?
That's why it's tough.
That's where it's insane. And we all contribute to it to varying degrees.
Vikings-Ravens noon on Saturday right here on the Fan, our next opportunity to do it.
How was the chemistry between Jonny Athletic and Tim Connelly yesterday? The big Johnny, what do we call his event?
The John Krasinski Show live event.
It's exactly
the live
it.
show.
We'll find out the answer to that and many other questions. I got a lot to ask Johnny, including a weird twist in the Kawhi Gate story that I am completely confused by. All of that with our guy Johnny when we return.
You're listening to Barreiro on the Fan.
Download the free iHeartRadio app. Search the late.
It's time for Jonny Athletic. Jonny Athletic. Jonny Athletic. And he's on the Dan Barreiro right now.
Questions, perhaps even some concerns for John Krasinski. Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line is at 64686, and Johnny joins us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Don't forget Ben Lieber in about an hour and 15 minutes or so. Is it fair to say that you lost yourself in the Rudy Gobert Productions video's eyes, Dateline Gay Paris?
I think I did, or maybe in his abs, more accurately, Dan, because those were prominently displayed throughout that video, as Rudy is wont to do.
Yes.
But very well done, very highly produced. The vibes seem to be immaculate. with that group, and it looked like they had a lot of fun, that they got a little bit of work done, and I know that you saw at the very end, they saved it for the end, just a really brief clip of LaMelo throwing a little lob to Rudy just to whet the appetite going into the season. Was perfectly executed there. Has
that videographer, producer, director combination, that team, has it been stolen away yet from the Rudy Gobert Productions by, let's say, Minnesota Timberwolves Productions, or another NBA team, a WNBA team, an NFL team? Because it looked very good to me, very slick.
Yeah, I think that. So I know the person who kind of oversaw the whole production, and he actually also did a lot of work on the documentary that Rudy Gobert debuted. I want to say it was 2 years ago now.
Okay.
Really talented guy, Jonathan, French guy, and so he spent some time around here. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of collaboration that ends up happening here with that, because it was dramatically lit. It was, expertly edited. It was really pulled off quite nicely by everyone involved in it.
James asks, more meaningful for Wolves Ubuntu, France trip or matching haircuts?
Ooh, that's a good one, because I thought he was going to bring up the Bahamas trip from several years ago.
Oh, that's right.
When, they all went to the Bahamas, and then by the trade deadline, everyone was gone besides Kat and Okogie. And so the Ubuntu was not too strong with that particular trip. But yeah, this one, I'll give it the trip. But if you want to kind of be optimistic and read into things, I think some of the haircuts from LaMelo and Ant, do they project more of a business-like attitude, maybe more of a serious-minded approach if we want to really read between the lines and maybe draw too many conclusions? You could be encouraged by that, but I still think seeing 13 or 14 guys all go over to Paris, Rudy kind of paying the freight on the ground there for hotels and activities and all those things, and everyone getting together, that's probably the more important sign of chemistry and cohesion right now.
Speaking of chemistry, alignment, and cohesiveness or cohesion, how did it measure on whatever scale we use for these things between you and Tim Connelly on the Johnny Krasinski special yesterday?
Yeah, it was a good time. I mean, I think everyone came out. There's maybe like 200 or more people, standing room only toward the back. So we had a great crowd at Forgotten Star. And then Tim was great. And he did like probably 35, 40 minutes. And then we also brought on Matt Lloyd, the general manager, and we talked a little bit of kind of evaluation of Johan Berenger. But Tim went up and down the roster, talked about LaMelo, talked about Rudy. We talked about his contract a little bit, a little bit of everything. So it's a really great crowd, a really good conversation. And I think it was a really nice thing to have, like in the middle of August when, we're still a little ways away from action in the NBA. And you could tell that Wolves fans are super excited. I mean, there were tons of them that came out for it on a Sunday evening, beautiful Sunday evening, and sat with us. So it was really appreciated.
How much of the conversation with Conley centered around all the ramifications of not just the LaMelo Ball move, but what he hopes and they hope it might do and represent?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that he in particular, and I think Chris Finch is in this group too, but that they have an evaluation of LaMelo the player that is just at a different level than a lot of other people do, maybe even including the Charlotte Hornets, who had him for 6 years. And I think one of the comments during our show was that he thinks that LaMelo is really one of the few guys in the league who's capable of raising the level of the teammates around him to a significant degree. Like they put LaMelo in a category that is elite in terms of what he can get out of those around him because of the way that he plays, because of his kind of effervescent attitude and style, and everything he brings to the table. And so when you listen to Tim talk about the excitement level, you do kind of catch yourself, because we all know that there are a lot of questions about how serious is he? Can he stay healthy? Like, he's never really won at a high level. What does all that mean coming to this space? But they are speaking of him as if he is an elite playmaker and an elite kind of ceiling raiser for everyone around him. And I think that's what gets them most excited about him, is not what he's going to do for himself and the stats that he's going to put up, but what he's going to do for Jaden McDaniels, for Anthony Edwards, for Rudy Gobert, for Terrence Shannon Jr. and Io DeSumo and everyone else around. And so they could not be more excited about what they have and what they've already seen from him just in the little time that he's been here. He's been in town a lot. He's at the practice facility a lot. And so it's sky high right now in terms of optimism from them about what they're getting with him.
Well, I'm going to tell you quite bluntly, I'm a little bewildered by this, because for years I was a LaMelo Bobo, and I got routinely mocked and ridiculed for that here. Oh, you can't possibly think he's better than Anthony Edwards. Well, no, I'm not saying he's better than Anthony Edwards as he turns out, although I wanted the Wolves to take LaMelo, because I believe, like Ricky Rubio, in making two people happy, not just one. I lose myself in the eyes of great visionary passers. I just do. But it's just so ironic, because now I'm not getting any pushback. And now that we have him, people say, oh, yeah, he's intriguing. It's really intriguing what he might represent. Now, it may turn out that, along with the head coach and Tim Connelly, I, too, have overrated him, projecting him someplace else, because part of it was, this is the way it would work with me. I mean, Charlotte wasn't very good most of these years, right? So you kind of get lost in that when Charlotte would come to town, or I'd watch him play. You'd say, well, there's nothing at stake. But then I'd just watch his game and say, I like a lot of things about him. I like a lot of that didn't end at during the draft, even if I had to acknowledge that, no, the Wolves obviously didn't blunder taking Anthony Edwards instead of LaMelo Ball. But it's just funny. All you guys now love LaMelo Ball, when before you were kind of like, yeah, I like him, but I'm not sure what he's made of. So what's that 180 all about?
Yeah, I think there's two things. First of all, at least for me personally, Dan, and I'll admit that I've never been a LaMelo Ball hater, but I've always been maybe a skeptic of like, what does it all really mean? But I will say, just personally, when you hear Tim Connelly and you hear Chris Finch, two guys who have helped usher in a period of success and talent development and seriousness with this franchise that we've never seen before. Like, when they speak as glowingly about him as they do, I have to give them a little benefit of the doubt. Their track record kind of stands for itself there. And so I'm going to at least say, all right, I'm going to hear you out on this, and I'm going to see this go. Yeah. But the other thing that I think is maybe more for the more casual fan who has kind of looked sideways at LaMelo, it feels to me a lot like Karl Anthony Towns, in terms of both players are very, very talented guys, and maybe both players got the blame for a lack of team success when they didn't have a whole lot of talent around them. And they're both eccentric dudes. They both, Melo drives cars really fast and has these flashy outfits that he wears. And he looks like he's maybe, can you take him seriously from a personality perspective? And Kat has all of his on-court theatrics and some of the answers to his questions. And you look at him, and so you kind of grade the personality and maybe let that sort of steer you away from what is really there as a basketball player. And I think that there's a possibility, a high possibility, that when you put LaMelo with a lot of really good, serious-minded players and a good coaching staff, maybe he really blossoms and takes the next step. And just like Kat did with the Wolves at the end of his tenure, and then now with the with the Knicks, and he's a champion. So I do think that sometimes the personality aspects of both players cloud the evaluation of who they are as basketball players.
Johnny Krasinski, Jonny Athletic, joining us as he does every week, usually on Mondays. here on The Fan. Often turns to Tuesdays once we hit the regular football season, which is not that far off. How did you explore, or give us a sense of how much you explored the ongoing discussion about the so-called power forward problem?
Yeah, we had a lot of discussion about it because I just know that that's first and foremost on a lot of fans' minds right now. And so, you come out and you want to listen to the president of basketball operations. You want those questions asked and answered. And my impression, Dan, with the way that Tim Connelly has answered, and I think he did similarly with you when you had him in, I think that they are not nearly as concerned about that particular problem or hole or weakness or however you want to define it as the outside observer is. I think that what Tim told me at the show was that, look, we had the chance to add an all-star level point guard who is 25 years old and who we think is going to make everyone better. And so we did that, and we upgraded our talent to a measurable degree by making that happen. And there are other things that we can do at power forward to kind of go along. And they really believe that Terrence Shannon Jr. and Jalen Clark and Trey Lyles and even Josh Green can at least mix and match in that spot for a while. And then if they need to go and find someone else to add a little more bulk, a little more strength, they can try to do that during the season. I do think that they have had, he did not speak specifically about this because he can't, but I do think they have had conversations with Jonathan Kuminga about trying to see if there is any appetite for him to take a minimum level deal to come here, but that seems like a long shot. And so, but they are not letting this issue sort of really take away from their focus of, we think we are much more talented and than we were before. And he likes their depth. He thinks that they have enough ways to kind of zig and zag around that issue. And so they're going to kind of ride this out and see what happens. But he was not sweating this at all. He's
been around for a while now, has Tim Connelly. So does the Paris Project intrigue him? Does he view it as something that might actually have some bonding quality? Or does he say, come on, it's off season, there's nothing, it's harmless, it's not going to hurt anybody, but it has limits in terms of how far it can go to actually, bringing the team together?
Yeah, I mean, he's certainly not like planning the parade route now because of that, but he is a big vibes guy. He loves when guys hang out together and spend time together away from the court. And so this is a team that, he was mentioning it, that maybe last year there was a lot of different guys in the locker room. And so there were a lot of different ages and there wasn't a whole lot, I don't think, of real camaraderie outside of it. There wasn't a whole lot of dinners that they were having together or just going and hanging out together. They're kind of a little more isolationist that way. And so what he took most out of it, Dan, was that he really liked that Ant was on the front end of like organizing the thing and really encouraging guys to get over there with them. And so he thinks that it will help them from a team chemistry standpoint, from a bonding standpoint, but mostly he wanted to see Anthony Edwards take a little bit more of a vocal leadership role. And he said that there were maybe a couple of guys where Ant had to call him and say, hey, come on, like, let's go. This is really important. And maybe twist their arms just a little bit to get them there. And then once everyone got there, they had a blast. But I think that's what he was focusing on the most, was that this was a totally player-driven thing. It was not generated by the team. It was not encouraged by Finch or Connelly or anything like that. These guys took it upon themselves to do it. And so that's why he thinks it has a chance of being more impactful than if it was some sort of orchestrated thing from higher up.
ESPN reports, I think, either last night or this morning, that the league is having difficulty finding direct links on Kawhi-gate between Kawhi and the money he got and the Clippers. Then the NBA sends out a statement saying there's a lot of inaccuracies in that particular report, I left the back and forth here very confused. Can you help us translate what has taken place in this story, and are we perilously close to having to think about the possibility that the Clippers are going to skate, not because something didn't happen, but because they were smarter about covering their tracks than the Timberwolves generally are, going all the way back to the Joe Smith deal?
Yeah, I mean, I think like if you read the ESPN report and take that at face value, and let's set aside the ESPN denial right off the bat here, and if that reporting is accurate and that they don't have evidence to directly link Ballmer to these under the table payments through aspiration, it does seem like there is going to be much less of a punishment, if a punishment at all. And one of the things that stuck out to me in that report is that, allegedly the league has shifted its focus away from those sort of under the table Joe Smith style promises and reports and payments for services not rendered by Kawhi. Instead, did the Clippers line up these sponsorship opportunities with Kawhi, with other team sponsors, including aspiration? And if that is what they're investigating, Dan, every single team in the league does that. Every single team signs a big high-profile player, and then they say, hey, Kawhi, we are also sponsored by McDonald's or whatever. Here you can meet these guys, and maybe you guys can figure out something on your own. So there's really nothing that is untoward about that. Now, where I will just throw out a caveat is the response by ESPN or by the NBA was much more full-throated denial than you often see in these sorts of stories. I think back to All the President's Men, my favorite movie, and it's like, this was not a non-denial denial. Like, this was a straight-up saying there are real inaccuracies in here, and we completely dispute this, essentially. And so I don't know where to stand exactly on the veracity of the report and exactly what was wrong and what wasn't, but it's just not often that you hear an NBA spokesman respond that bluntly and that emphatically with a denial on it. So we'll have to kind of wait and see how this all plays out, I think.
I agree. That's what struck me, is it's usually a little bit more circular, it's a little bit more opaque, and that was awfully direct. So here's what's the other element that's confusing me. I've listened to portions of a couple of the, Pablo Torre podcast, the guy who's been, front and center in investigating this thing from the beginning, right? And I will say, on the basis of what I've heard, the reporting looked very sound, and I came away from it saying, well, the Clippers are cooked. He's done a lot of really good, tenacious reporting on the basis of paperwork, right? Documentation. So what does this tell us? Is it possible he presented it more persuasively than the material really is, or is it back to the league is going to have a higher threshold in terms of saying that, well, here's whether we prove our case as opposed to whether an independent journalist thinks he has proven his?
So I'm just going to speculate a little bit, but this is the way that I observe it, is that there is a possibility that Pablo has either framed things in a way that isn't completely accurate or lacks some of the important context and nuance that makes it look worse than it is. Certainly the Clippers, from the start of this, have been very forceful in their denial.
Yes.
And they have put up a big fight saying, look, this is wrong. There's no chance that we've done this. And so that's a possibility. Or the other possibility, Dan, that I think is real here is that Pablo has nailed this thing and got a lot of the documents and got a lot of testimony from anonymous sources that have offered really damning evidence, and that after doing this reporting and publishing and getting all of this attention, all of those sources have clammed up. And like, if the NBA is trying to get in touch with them and trying to get some of the same evidence and information, they may be having a lot more difficulty right now because of legal ramifications, because of threats by, anyone involved, all of those things. And so now that it has been shed out in the light, there can be people that scurry for the shadows a little bit more too. So I think that there's two possibilities there that, could be equally likely or viable when you're trying to explain the NBA's difficulties in piecing together a similar frame of context and evidence and reporting.
Lastly, we get the schedule release. We also get details about Kevin Garnett night, at least the night when his jersey will be indeed retired on unfurled from the Target Center rafters. Do we have any better notion now what Garnett's role is beyond we're trying to just bring you back into the family? Is there more meat on that bone now, or what can we expect his role to be above and beyond our attempt to celebrate?
Sure. Actually, what was explained to me so far was like that this next season is, and that ceremony in particular, is kind of the culmination of the initial deal with Garnett of let's get you back in the building a few times. Let's reconnect. Let's see if there's some things to build on going forward. Let's have you do some social media and digital content for us, and let's just kind of ease you back into the equation. And then I think the hope is, on the Timberwolves part, is that once he is in the building for ceremony night and he is, just lauded with all of the love and embrace that he's going to get from the fans, and when he sees 21 raised up into the rafters, that maybe that opens the door going forward for more interaction, for more regular visits and more of a presence. I don't think it's ever, or I don't think the plan is right now, Dan, for him to be involved kind of in the basketball side of things and helping make decisions or anything like that. But I do think that they really do want to see as much of KG from that ambassador kind of role as he is willing to provide. And, this is KG. He does things exactly how he wants to do it and not one bit more or less. And so it really, I think, is going to be up to Kevin how much time and what kind of things he does with this franchise going forward.
One other question, LaMelo related, does pop in my head here. Mm-hmm. Did you guys discuss the plan in terms of his minutes? There's a lot has been made about the fact that he stayed relatively healthy last year, probably for the first time in a while, but he averaged 28 minutes. My assumption is the grand plan does not have LaMelo most nights playing 28 minutes. They'd rather play him, not 44, but obviously more than 28. Yeah. So do we have a plan yet that they're willing to reveal or talk about in that sense?
So Tim did not discuss like specifics, like, he's going to play 35 minutes a night or things of that nature. But what he did say that I thought was notable is that this is a team and a franchise that has established itself as one that does not load manage, that does not, just give people nights off just for the sake of it, that doesn't limit minutes, that wants to have players that are here that when you suit up, you're expected to play. And if you're not hurt, you're going to be playing. And so, of course, they manage Mike Conley's minutes, or they may even dial Rudy's minutes back a little bit as he gets a little bit older. But I don't think that there's going to be a plan right away to keep LaMelo's minutes down at 30 minutes or less. I think that they invested heavily to get him, and they believe with their training staff and medical staff that has been very good for the last several years, that they can do what they need to do to help him get stronger and help him stay healthy, and that he will be on the court starter level minutes and he will be playing a lot. And what we know of Chris Finch is when he gets a guy who is really impactful and that he can trust, he plays them, and he plays them a lot. And so I think you are going to see a goal of, LaMelo being well into the 30s and being out there as much as possible, because they really believe that every minute that he's on the floor, he is going to change their impact, their ability to score, to win, and to play defense and all of it to a measurable degree. And so I do not think there's going to be any sort of plan to take it easy with LaMelo. I think that they're going to challenge him to play and play a lot.
Johnny, we appreciate you. We'll leave football till later, where there's plenty of time for you to weigh in as we get closer. All we've had really is a big declaration and one preseason game and one nice completion. That's it. That's all we've had.
Yeah, let's let this thing breathe a little bit.
Yeah,
and by the time we get another game or two under our belts, I'll be ready to pontificate at an elite level.
Even better. Thank you. We'll talk soon.
All right, thanks, Dan.
Jonny Athletic, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems Hotline. 4 o'clock hour will include a late visit or a visit late in the hour with Nacho Ben Lieber. I've got some A-section stuff to explore. I've got some giveaways to remind you of as well as we continued on the very special edition of the Afternoon Aardvark.
Bumper to Bumper with Dan Barreiro on the Fan.
From the 1-8